Morning, everyone. So we are going to see the art of the Middle Age today. Let's begin. So according to tradition, Jesus, known as the Christ, was born in Bethlehem during the reign of Emperor Augustus. So in time, his followers would become so influential in world affairs that our common calendar takes as its starting point the presumed date of Jesus' birth, calling it year one. As a matter of fact, the 6th century calendar makers who devised this plan were wrong in their calculations. Jesus probably was born between 4 and 6 years earlier, than they had supposed, but the calendar had nevertheless become standard. Here's Rome, and we learned it last week. The Roman Empire dominated the Mediterranean region from the 2nd century BCE, later extending its control of Western Europe and the Middle East. But by the 4th century, the empire was crumbling in the West. The Christianity was one of numerous religions in the late Roman Empire, but it quickly became one of the most popular and well-organized. Romans' attitude toward this new cultural force within its borders varied, and often the faith was tolerated, especially since it came to attract an increasing number of wealthy and influential people. And at other times, Christians were persecuted, sometimes officially and sometimes by mobs. And one reason for the persecutions was that Christians refused to worship the gods and goddesses of the state religion, including the emperor himself, in addition to their own god. So clearly, such people were a threat to the political stability and well-being of the empire. And Christianity's situation changed abruptly in the year 313 when the Roman Emperor Constantine issued an edict of tolerance for all religions. So this is Constantine. So not only were all faith now free to practice openly, but also Constantine himself patronized Christianity. So while battling his political enemies in 312, Constantine had a vision of a cross with the inscription in the sign concord. And he interpreted this to mean that following Christian teachings and worship the Christian God would lead him to victory. So he won the battle and converted to the Christian faith. So this is the Arch of Constantine in Rome. His triumphal arch is a monument erected to commemorate these victories. And it pictures the battle that secured his imperial title, as well as scenes of past emperors' triumphs and personification of victory. So the panel, this is one of the panel from this Constantine. So the panel picturing Constantine and his court features small stereotyped figures, drapery described with thick lines, and limited spatial depth. So now let's compare the ancient Greece and the Middle Age sculptures. So everyone, look at these two sculptures. Can you find the difference between these two sculptures? What's the difference?
Mm,
One shows more definition of like the human anatomy, while the other one is more like a 2D frame, I guess you can say.
Exactly. Yes. Very good. So the left one is now ancient Greek sculpture of Hellenistic period, and which was made in the late 1st century BCE. But the implied motion of the sculpture shows very advanced technique of freestanding sculpture. And the skin and the muscle looks like, real. And it is hard to believe that the sculpture's material is marble. It looks very soft. Also, we can feel the dramatic emotions through this sculpture. So feels like we are in the middle of the happening. Can you believe it? This is made before the century. Now, on the other hand, look at this Arch of Constantine's sculpture, the right one. It looks like a flat sculpture and doesn't show any volume. Also, all the figures in the sculpture depicted as not realistic and very simple. So it feels like the advanced Greek technique was going back to the Mesopotamia art, even though this is made 400 years later since the left Greek sculpture had been made. And the reason is that Christianity treats artists as craftsmen, and they don't want to make any figures realistic and idealized. They didn't accept any beautiful and idealized art, not other than worship of their God, like, Jesus Christ. So they don't care about advancement of artistic technique, and they only focused on the description of the Bible. So that's why many of the scholars have called the um, Middle Ages as dark ages in art. And the same thing was happened in the painting as well. And the stories are about the Christianity for 1,000 years. They describe the baby with the same proportion of adult, just make it smaller. And this is another example of Middle Age painting. The gold circles here, the gold circles behind the figures are representing light. And let's compare the ancient Romans painting and Middle Ages painting. So, like the comparison of a sculpture, the ancient Romans painting is
I'm
very
sorry.
realistic.
I'm sorry.
Okay, Anna. Yeah.
When you say white, what do you mean white? Like white people?
Can you say again?
When you say white, what do you mean white? Like white people? I'm confused.
Did I say white people?
No, you say the gold circle
Gold.
represents something.
The gold. This one, the gold. So this means light.
Oh, light. Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I heard something else.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah. So that is the lighting, behind the people.
Okay, I get it
Yeah.
now. Thank you.
You're welcome. So as you can see, the Roman sculpt painting is very realistic, but the Middle Ages painting is simplified, just like the sculpture. So the style of art in Roman Empire had changed. The beauty of the human body was no longer important to the artist. So now art emphasized symbolism and narrative clarity, with signs borrowed from pagan art but repurposed with Christian meaning. And the idealized bodies and individualized faces of the classical era had been replaced with stylized figures and generic facial features. However, their architecture, their architecture techniques were flourished to build churches. So under Constantine's imperial sponsorship, architects raised a series of large and opulent churches at key locations in the empire. So once one of these, one second, someone is coming in. All right. So one of these was Old Saint Peter's, built Old Saint Peter's, and it built on the spot in Rome where it was believed that Peter, the Jesus' first apostle, had been buried. Christianity from the beginning emphasized congregational worship, and so a fundamentally different kind of building was needed, one that could contain a lot of people. A multi-purpose meeting hall called basilica. So this is basilica, and it was the standard building types of Roman architects. And based on basilica, the architects of Middle Ages developed three types of architecture styles. So first one is Byzantine architecture, and the next one is Romanesque, and the last one is Gothic style architecture. So let's see one by one. The Byzantine Emperor Justinian I was a devoted patron of the arts. He funded hundreds of churches, mosaics, and paintings throughout his empire. Byzantine churches are grandeur with large scale, as you can see here, and it has dome. These are dome, which is hemisphere-shaped roof. And this is the inside of Byzantine church. And mosaic was a favored Byzantine technique to decorate their the church, the inside of the church, or external of the church. Byzantine artists had moved away from the naturalism and realism of Greece and Rome toward flattened, abstract styles. So like artists of ancient Egypt, Byzantine artists strove to portray often complex religious doctrines and beliefs, not scenes from daily life. A mosaic is an artistic picture of design made out of any materials assembled together. Mosaics are used as decoration for the church, and architects use mosaic murals for nowadays, for kitchen backsplash or shower wall and entry floor art. And mosaic or crafts items are used as home decor nowadays. And cities often decorate public places such as parks. We now see everywhere with mosaic murals and sculptures. And the Romanesque period. Let's move on the Romanesque. The Romanesque period was marked by a building boom. Contemporary commentators were thrilled at the beautiful churches that seemed to be springing up everywhere. Later art historians called the style of these buildings Romanesque, for despite their great variety, they shared certain features reminiscent of ancient Roman architecture, including an overall massiveness, thick stone walls, and round arches, and barrel vaulted stone ceilings. And it has beautiful single arch windows like this. And the last one is Gothic style architecture in the Middle Age. The Gothic style was, started by a powerful French abbot named Suger, who wanted to enlarge and remodel his church, the Abbey Church of Saint Denis near Paris. And he came to believe that an ideal church should have certain characteristics. It should appear to reach up to heaven. It should have harmonious proportions, and it should be filled with light. And to fulfill those goals, his architects responded with pointed arches like this. These are pointed arches, and ribbed vaulting and flying buttresses. So it is ornate, linear, and vertical elements that direct the eye upward. And it has a stained glass window so large. So these are stained glass. They seemed like translucent walls with the beautiful and exotic colors. Also, the sculptures of the Gothic style church were made very long, like the church's roofs. So during the Middle Ages, architecture was flourished by building churches, and these three styles are clearly different. Byzantine architecture style is grandeur and large scale with dome and mosaic. And the Romanesque architecture style is simple and modern with round arch windows. And lastly, Gothic architecture style is sophisticated and extravagant with pointed arches and pointed roofs and stained glass window. So that's it for this chapter. For better understanding the art of Middle Age, please read the e-textbook. And we have a discussion today. And you will need to research for this. So everyone, please go to the week 10 after this meeting. So here is the topic, the discussion 10.1. So Middle Age was a time of a strong religious belief. And please select 2 artworks from any religions you want to choose, and each made for believers of a different religion. And contrast how the artist has emphasized the religious elements of the artwork. So that is the topic of today's discussion. Any question, everyone?